Well, I'm going to take that as a seal of approval. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make this garden edging using a material that most people would just throw away. It's late winter in the allotment garden, and one thing that a lot of us are doing this time of the year, just before spring and before new buds start breaking, is pruning down our raspberry canes. I pruned mine down a bit earlier this year because it is quite windy up here and the canes rock the roots around. But most people leave them until about February, even early March, to cut down. What you have left at the end are these. They're just kind of desiccated brown sticks, and most people burn these, compost them, or get rid of them in some other way. 3 years ago, I found a way to use them though, and I created a woven wattle raspberry cane edging. Now, when I built the new raspberry supports last month, I had to take down the old raspberry cane edging, and it was quite brittle at that time, but it was still holding and it was keeping the compost that I have inside this bed where it needs to be. Now, I'm taking the time now to create a new video for you. So 3 years ago, I shared how I did that. It was just a very short video, but I wanted to share a bit more information, especially after 3 years of having it here on the plot, show you how to do it, how to make it basically, and talk about the longevity and some of the benefits of having raspberry cane edging. Autumn fruiting raspberries will actually refruit on old canes, but not as prolifically as they will on really new canes. So what we do is cut the canes down, and I leave about that much generally, sometimes a little bit less. These are the raspberry canes that I pruned out of my raspberry patch at the end of last year, and I've just left them out here on the plot in the weather until now, and that's perfectly fine. Now, as a material, they're not as durable as willow or hazel, but they are surprisingly sturdy. And as I've said, my last raspberry cane edging lasted about 3 years. So after 3 years, they do get a lot more brittle. And you can see here, this is a piece from the old raspberry cane edging, and it was relatively easy just to kind of knock over, but it did hold its form, and it doesn't take very long to make this project. So there's no real negative side to it. You're investing maybe 20 minutes into making a segment about this size, and then 3 years on, you replace it with new canes. And you have that material already because it's free, you're taking it down from your plants, you're giving it a second use. Aside from the raspberry canes, you'll only need a few other materials and tools. Now, the raspberries in themselves, the canes, are not super sturdy, well, not sturdy enough to use as uprights and to weave the actual canes around. So use another type of material like bamboo canes. You could also use hazel or another stick, even other types of materials. And this is just, they're just a couple of canes that I have laying around the allotment. So whatever works for you. You'll also need a straight edge, so it could be a piece of string, or I'm just using a board today, and that's just to keep your work really straight and tidy. You'll need some secateurs as well, and you'll need a hammer or a mini hatchet or something like this, a mini sledgehammer, and this is just to pound the stakes in afterwards. You could even use a rock, really. This is a budget project. The first step in this project is putting in the uprights. So I've put my straight edge along the front here, and that's just to make sure that they all go in at the same kind of distance in the front, keeping it straight and even. And I've put the first cane in, and And all I've done is push the bamboo cane into the ground as far as I can and then trimmed it to about 1 foot. This is what remains, and I'm going to move it on another foot-ish. It's all really just an estimate. You don't have to get out your ruler or measuring tape. Sink it into the ground and then trim it again. So just continue on, and I'm just filling up this gap here between these 2 posts. With my raspberry cane edging, I'm using posts as supports as well, but you can just use bamboo, and you can use other structures as well to weave them around. It's really just an imprecise art that makes use of basically a waste material, and it looks great as well. Before we start weaving, I want to show you what it's going to look like at the end. So that is a work in progress there, that segment. And then I finished this segment first. And that took me, I would say, about 10 minutes. It wasn't very long at all. It's a very short segment, maybe about 4 feet wide. And if we look closer, you can see that we alternate the raspberry canes either side, and then you're weaving it around. It looks a lot more complicated than it actually is, and I will show you in a moment. But I think this should give you an idea for what I mean when I say alternate back and forth. So I'm starting on one side of the post, on one end of this segment, and I'm just weaving this piece of raspberry cane around the bamboo. And then when it's gotten as far as it can, I just push it down. Then I take the next piece and I start from this side. And this keeps it nice and even. And I do the exact same thing, weaving it in and out of these canes. And they will be brittle at the end. Don't worry about that. This will last, I promise. And then you alternate sides. So I'm going back to this side, and I'm alternating the side of the post. So the last time I started on the inner side of the post, this time I'm starting here. I'm gonna go down as far as I can and just weave around. The next piece, going back to this side and alternating, putting it on the far side of the post. In case you forgot which side of the post or the upright you started from, don't worry, because you can see the last one that you put on is lying on top. So I know that the last one I did was here in the front, so we're gonna go back to the back and just weave round. And that's all there is to it. You just continue this all the way up the canes as far as you'd like to go. Right. So I'm really happy with this height, so I'm going to finish off here. But what I'm left with are these bamboo canes that are sticking up. You could leave them, of course, and that's completely up to you. But I like to keep mine a bit lower so that they blend in with the rest of the edging. They don't catch on anything, but it is completely up to you. And that's where your hammer or rock come into play. Just tap them down until they're just above the wattle edging here. You don't want them too low because then the raspberry canes can slip off, but just above. Making raspberry cane edging is a lot simpler than it looks. It's really just that basic in and out movement around the verticals and making sure that you alternate. And then you'll have something like this in no time. But if you want a little bit more information, I've popped full instructions up on my website. I'll pop a link up on the screen, so head over there and check that out. Next time, we are going to be looking at something else that's woven though, with something that's a bit sturdier. So recently, I hosted a willow weaving workshop here on the Isle of Man with my friend John Dog Collister, and we made willow hurdles. So if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that it is quite windy and exposed up here at the allotment. And to be able to protect plants, you do have to put up windbreaks of sorts in some cases. And so I saw some on another person's plot. They used hazel actually, and we have created structures and a technique for weaving willow hurdles. And John Dog perfected that and taught me how to do it, and I'm going to teach you how to do it as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time for that next weaving video. And until then, bye for now.